it comes to the first round for the Eagles, when Howie drafts best player available, they're usually successful. Dallas still stinks. Yo, by the way, kick thing back here. Let's not pretend the Eagles are more talented at the wide receiver position than they were last year. Let's not pretend that losing A.J. Brown is not a significant loss of talent, because it is. It is. That, however, does not mean that your offense can't be better as a whole than it was the year before. That doesn't mean that the depth is worse than it was last year, because I actually think the wide receiver depth is actually better. And with the way the offense was last year and the way they had Patullo being the offensive coordinator last year, guy couldn't make a game time adjustment at all. But with new coaching, with basically some good coaching, some good players to go around, you can make up for a lot of the loss that you had. And one of the guys the Eagles are counting on doing that is Makai Lemon. And I think it's really funny that it's just like one, and I talk about this all the time, it's like just going down the checklist of who Eagles we're going to trash and try to get rid of and try to ruin before they even get started. Okay, you got rid of A.J. Brown. The haters could check that. He's gone. Then they went after Jalen Hurts and his contract. Then they went after Jalen Carter and his contract. Then they go after Saquon Barkley and whether he can have a bounce back. And now you look at it, it's Makai Lemon. Did you guys see this, right? Emmanuel ACHO, he went after Makai Lemon, and he had a lot to say about whether Makai Lemon is going to really end up being any good for the Philadelphia Eagles. This is what he said. I don't think Makai Lemon is a first-round talent. But in a weaker wide receiver class, when there was a dearth of top wide receivers, Cornell Tate ends up going top 5 overall. Now Makai Lemon gets overdrafted, and that's really probably going to be used against him the entirety of his career. Because he's not a first-round talent and he's not that good, he's saying that he'll always get compared to first-round talents, and he'll never be able to live up to those expectations. Now, I'm going to tell you, I did not spend a lot of time on wide receivers in the first round because I didn't think they were going to do it. I really never, I was one of those people, and I fully admit I was fooled. I thought we were going to keep A.J. Brown. I said, nah, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. And then they did. So it was a bit of a shock to me when the Eagles drafted Makai Lemon. And my thoughts are this, that if we keeping it real, if we're keeping it truthful, I don't know if he's a first-round talent. I don't know. I don't know. I felt like Tate was a first-round talent, and I felt like pretty much everybody else was somewhere mixed into late first rounds to early second rounds and second round type receivers. I don't know which ones are going to wind up rising up, but I do think Makai Lemon is primarily going to be a slot wide receiver in this league. And the question is, can he be effective? And if he can, that's what matters the most. And I think what ACHO is saying is really, it's just another way to go attack the Eagles. At this point, there is no reason to even say that, okay? There were a lot of teams. Pittsburgh Steelers were getting ready to take him in the first round. So you can't say he's not a first-round talent when multiple teams in the first round were going to take him. I didn't really evaluate the receivers to tell you if he's a first-round pick or not. So I'm excited about Makai Lemon. I think that I like, from everything I've seen and learned about him, I like a lot, and I think he's going to fit in real good. But this is going to be the question about Makai Lemon. And I think that we can look at a historical precedent of Howie Roseman and drafting to know or have an idea of this, if this kid's going to be good or not. But before we do that, quick word from our sponsor. Prize Picks is America's #1 sportsbook app. It's the best place to win cash while watching sports. The app is really easy to use. All you have to do is pick more or less a player, get your lineup ready, then boom, you're locked in. And it's legal in almost all 50 states, including California, Florida, and Texas. And not only can you do players and pick players, they now offer team plays. And one of the things that I really like right now is I like the pick for MVP. That's right, MVP. Who's going to win it? With AJ Brown getting traded and Jalen Hurts getting so much negative talk this year, I think it's going to motivate Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to be ready for a big year. That's why I'm taking Jalen Hurts to win MVP this year. That's my pick. I'm locking it in. If you like that or you want to do something similar, all you have to do is download the app, use code HMA, play your first $5 entry, and you'll get $50 instantly in lineups. That's $50 instantly in lineups on a $5 entry. Just use promo code HMA. Link is in the description. Shout out to Prize Picks. Shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's video. Here's what I'll say, right? To me, it's very simple. And you could ask Howie Roseman, if you could get a truthful answer, you could know whether this kid's going to be good or not. And to me, it's this. Did the Philadelphia Eagles draft Makai Lemon because they needed a wide receiver? Or did they draft Makai Lemon because, first and foremost, he was that talented and he was ranked that high on their draft board, and they were going to need another wide receiver? If it's the second reason, then Makai Lemon is going to be really good. He's going to be lights out, really good, shut everybody up. If it was primarily the other reason, because they were reaching for position of need, then we might have some problems. Just going to keep it a buck, all right? Because Howie in the first round, when he does not pick based on talent first and best player available, his first round picks have not been good. When he takes guys that are the best player available at that position, he's way better in the first round. And he's been very good the last few years of taking the best player available. If you look at all the first round picks that they've taken, right, you had the Jalen Reagor pick, which was, we all know, was a gigantic mishap. It was a misstep, and it was a pick based on need. The Eagles were looking for a speed wide receiver on the outside, and they took Jalen Reagor. And that was why they drafted him. Not because he was the best player available, but because he fit a position of need. And that's where they get in trouble. That's how Howie gets in trouble with his draft picks. And, the argument really is, did the Eagles take Lemon because he was the best player available, or did he take him because they knew they were going to need a wide receiver? Those are two different things. They're two different things. They can overlap, but for the most part, those are two different things. And when the Eagles took Reagor, they kind of changed their ways, right? They realized they made a mistake. They started taking best player available, guys on top of their draft board. They started drafting guys like Devonta Smith, Jalen Carter. No order, right? Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Quinyon Mitchell. They started hitting on their first round picks, and it's been fantastic. Okay, maybe the only first one I can really think of is maybe Nolan Smith. He might be the only one that really hasn't worked out in recent years. But for the most part, they hit on their picks. And so it's simple. When we look at Makai Lemon, if the Eagles took him because he was the best player on their board, he was one of the top guys on their draft board, then he's going to be great. He's going to be great. But if they took him because they needed a receiver and that was the only reason why, then we're going to have to wait and see, because history tells us something different. I'm not making a judgment either way. I believe the Eagles took the best player available because it's been working so well. I don't see why Howie would change it, but time will tell. And I think from what we're seeing of Lemon, I think he's going to be a stud. Okay, I do. So I'm going on record saying I think he's going to be a stud, and I think they took the best player available, and that's why the Steelers were losing their mind. And as far as the rest of the team goes with the receiver position, look, we're going to have to see how they're going to work this, right? You got Devonta Smith. He's a stud. But who's going to step up? That's the question. Makai Lemon, we need him to step up. You also got Hollywood Brown. Can Hollywood Brown return to what he was a few years ago? I have my questions and doubts about it, okay? He wouldn't surprise me if he was a roster cut at camp. Okay, because I could see a situation where Darius Cooper rises up and pushes a guy like him out, where it's close enough in competition, they go with the young guy. Elijah Moore is another guy that they brought in that has been productive in the past. Could be a very good signing for the Eagles. And then, of course, you have Wicks they got from Green Bay in a trade. I like Wicks a lot. Okay, I do. I think he could play. You look at Dontavian Wicks' rookie year. He looked like he was about to be a star. And then the Packers always had like multiple decent receivers. And I think it took targets and stuff away from him. I think Wicks is probably going to win that second job. You'll have Lemon in the slot. And then when you go in the draft next year, you could look at the first round pick and say, you know what? Lemon's primarily a slot receiver. Let's get another outside wide receiver in the first round. Lock the two young rookie receivers up for a long time. Give Devonta Smith an extension, and we're set for years to come at the receiver position. They could do something like that. But as far as the Makai Lemon, there's a lot of people that are crapping on the pick. And to me, I have no reason to believe that the Eagles took him for any other reason than they needed, that he was the best on their board when they drafted. And that's what I think. Because to me, I had linemen pretty high, but they all went early. So when I see stuff like really doubting Lemon, I kind of like it because I'd rather him be doubted and exceed expectations than everybody expect him to do big things and then he does nothing, right? So I think Lemon was not the product of taking for need, but I think he was taking for best player available. And that's what the Eagles have done successfully over the last 5-6 years, and it's why this team has have drafted so well, and they've gone and won a Super Bowl. And I got to think that they stuck with that with Lemon. But we will find out soon enough. With that said, take care. Talk to you later. Of course, don't be a dingbat. Remember, it's Howie Vision, baby. We're all just living in it. Let me say this, too. Darius Cooper is a guy to watch because Darius Cooper showed us a lot last year, okay? And if he can survive the going up against the Wicks and the Elijah Moores and the Hollywood Browns, and he's still on this roster, to me, that tells us we've got a stud down the road, and I love it. With that said, Denzel Washington out. That's all, folks.
The brother screwed us.